Daytime TV made these men feel like family. We watched them talk about love, marriage, heartbreak, and second chances. But some were hiding battles viewers never saw. Secret relationships, career fears, public scandals, betrayal, loss, and one legendary soap star whose real love story stayed almost completely off camera. These are the LGBTQ+ truths behind 10 familiar faces viewers thought they knew. 1. Anthony Geary. America knew Luke's love story, but not Tony's? For nearly 4 decades, Anthony Geary belonged to Daytime America. As Luke Spencer on General Hospital, he became half of a romance so famous that viewers didn't just watch Luke and Laura, they felt invested in them. Their wedding became television history, and for generations of fans, Geary's face was permanently attached to one of Daytime's greatest heterosexual love stories. But the man behind Luke built a very different life. Geary met Claudio Gama in 1995. They would spend more than 30 years together and marry in 2019. Yet compared with the enormous mythology surrounding Luke and Laura, Tony and Claudio lived quietly. After Geary retired in 2015, they settled full-time in Amsterdam, far from the machinery that had turned his fictional romance into national property. That contrast surprised many fans. They knew Luke's wives, Luke's betrayals, Luke's heartbreaks. Some knew far less about the man Anthony Geary went home to. There is no reliable evidence that Geary was forced to hide his marriage or threatened for loving a man, and his story should not be rewritten that way. The more haunting truth may be simpler. A star can be watched by millions and still keep the most meaningful part of his life outside the role audiences think they own. Then, in December 2025, the story changed forever. Geary died unexpectedly at 78 following complications from surgery. It was Claudio who confirmed the loss, describing Tony as his friend, companion, and husband of more than 30 years. Suddenly, a love story that had existed quietly beside one of television's loudest romances became impossible to overlook. And maybe that is why the revelation hit longtime soap fans so hard. America had spent decades believing it knew Anthony Geary through Luke Spencer. But fame had shown them a character, not the whole man. So tell us, when an actor becomes part of our daily lives for decades, do fans deserve to know who he truly loves, or is that exactly the part of himself he has the greatest right to protect? Luke and Laura belong to television history. Tony and Claudio belong to each other. 2. Colton Underwood, the perfect bachelor's imperfect truth. Colton Underwood was sold to America as the perfect straight fantasy: football player, church-raised athlete, virgin bachelor, and the man women were supposed to fight over. What viewers didn't know was that Colton says he was using that fantasy to hide from himself. Years later, he admitted he entered the Bachelor franchise, hoping it might somehow convince him he was straight. The virginity storyline made the pressure worse. He feared questions about sex would become questions about his sexuality. And they did. Behind the cameras, that fear became darker. Underwood has said an anonymous person obtained photographs of him at a gay spa and threatened to release them. In 2026, he described blackmail, a hacked iCloud account, and the paranoia of believing people were watching him. He also said that, while closeted, he sometimes chose married men for private encounters because he believed they had as much to lose from exposure. But Colton's story cannot be told as a simple victim narrative. After his relationship with Cassie Randolph ended, she obtained a temporary restraining order in 2020, alleging unwanted messages, unannounced visits, and a tracking device on her car. She later withdrew the case after a private agreement. Underwood has since said he made serious mistakes and takes responsibility for his behavior during that dark period. Then came April 2021. Sitting across from Robin Roberts on Good Morning America, the former Bachelor publicly said he was gay. Some viewers celebrated, others were furious. Critics questioned whether coming out was becoming part of a public image reset. That argument has followed him ever since. Even after marrying Jordan C. Brown and becoming a father, hostility remained. During The Traitors in 2026, Underwood said online abuse escalated into death threats against him and his family. So where does empathy end and accountability begin? Can we understand what the closet, religion, and blackmail did to Colton without using any of it to excuse harm another person says she experienced? Tell us in the comments. Does coming out help explain someone's darkest period? Or should those two stories remain separate? Finding the truth about yourself can change your future. It does not erase your past. 3. Christian LeBlanc, the husband behind Michael Baldwin. For more than 30 years, Christian LeBlanc has lived inside one of daytime television's most complicated men. As Michael Baldwin on The Young and the Restless, viewers watched marriages, betrayal, redemption, and family drama unfold for decades. Fans knew Michael's romantic history intimately, but Christian's real love story was much quieter. In 2021, during a personal conversation with Maurice Benard, LeBlanc spoke publicly about being gay and revealed something that surprised many longtime soap viewers. He had already been with his husband for 28 years. 28 years. A decades-long love story had existed beside one of daytime's most recognizable faces, while millions knew little about it. LeBlanc also explained why old habits of caution do not simply disappear when society changes. He spoke about the legacy of homophobia, saying that even after decades together, he still did not comfortably hold his husband's hand in public. That detail says more than any invented firing scandal could. Imagine spending thousands of episodes acting out affection and marriage for an audience, then hesitating over one ordinary gesture with your actual husband. There is no evidence CBS ordered LeBlanc into the closet. The wound he described was larger than one network. The conditioning of a generation that learned visibility could carry a price. Then his body delivered another secret he could no longer keep. In 2023, fans began noticing changes on screen, including dramatic weight loss and changes around his eye. LeBlanc later revealed that he had multiple myeloma, a fast-moving blood cancer. He stepped away from The Young and the Restless for treatment and later announced he was in remission before returning to Genoa City. For longtime viewers, it was frightening. Once again, the camera showed clues before they knew the truth. So, what do you think? If a man can be with his husband for nearly 3 decades and still think twice before holding his hand, how much progress have we really made? And should a daytime star ever have to choose between protecting his private life and letting fans know the man behind the character? Michael Baldwin survived almost everything the writers threw at him. Christian LeBlanc survived battles the writers never had to invent. 4. Tim Gunn, the heartbreak that lasted 4 decades. Tim Gunn became famous for one reassuring sentence: "Make it work." But there was one part of his own life he eventually stopped trying to make work at all. Long before Project Runway, before the immaculate suits and calm advice, Gunn was deeply in love with one man for 9 years. He has said he would have done almost anything for him. Then, one ordinary night in 1982, while they were watching television in bed, the relationship ended with brutal suddenness. And the breakup contained an even darker revelation. Gunn said his partner admitted he had been sleeping with many other people while Gunn had remained faithful. This was the beginning of the AIDS crisis, when fear was spreading faster than reliable information. Gunn suddenly had to wonder whether the person he trusted most had also unknowingly put his life at risk. For the next 10 years, he says he was tested for HIV every 6 months. Every result was negative, but the emotional fear did not disappear with the test results. The strangest part came afterward. More than 4 decades passed without another sexual relationship. Gunn explained that whenever a connection began to feel serious, memories of that betrayal would return with overwhelming force. Desire vanished. What began as heartbreak slowly became a completely different way of living. But this is where his story refuses the ending people expect. Tim Gunn does not describe himself as a broken man waiting to be rescued. He has said he is fulfilled and now would not want his life any other way. So maybe the tragedy is not that Tim Gunn spent decades alone. Maybe the tragedy is that one betrayal arrived during one of the most terrifying moments in gay history and changed the shape of intimacy for the rest of his life. Would you call that fear winning? Or can choosing solitude eventually become its own form of happiness? Tell us in the comments. If someone stops looking for love after being betrayed that deeply, should we feel sorry for him? Or respect the life he chose? Tim Gunn taught millions of people how to move forward. Few knew what he had left behind to do it. 5. Karamo Brown, the conflict expert's own TV war. Every afternoon, Karamo Brown sat across from families drowning in betrayal, resentment, and secrets. His job was to make people talk. But by 2026, the most uncomfortable conversation surrounding Karamo was about what had allegedly been happening inside his own television family. For 10 seasons of Queer Eye, viewers saw the Fab Five hug, laugh, cry, and tell strangers that vulnerability could change their lives. Karamo now says his own experience behind that uplifting image was very different. He described years of bullying, emotional strain, and a workplace environment he considered toxic. He also revealed something viewers never saw. During season 3, after 12 years of sobriety, Brown says he relapsed while struggling with depression and what he described as the pressure surrounding the show. Then came one extraordinary breaking point. According to Brown, his mother was visiting the set when she overheard some of his castmates speaking negatively about him. For Karamo, that moment shattered whatever remained of the illusion that this television family was functioning like one. In January 2026, he abruptly pulled out of scheduled appearances with his Queer Eye co-stars on CBS Mornings and Today. His representatives said he was worried about being bullied and needed to protect his mental health. His castmates were reportedly stunned. Producers later strongly disputed Brown's broader description of the workplace, while Tan France publicly said Queer Eye had been a dream experience for him. And then, another door closed. Karamo, the daytime talk show where Brown had spent 4 seasons helping other people confront conflict, was canceled in 2026. But the reason matters. NBC Universal was exiting first-run syndication altogether, also ending other programs. There is no verified evidence that his Queer Eye feud caused the cancellation. That almost makes the timing stranger. The man teaching strangers to set boundaries was suddenly setting one in front of millions. Was he protecting himself? Or did walking away from coworkers at the last minute cross a professional line? And if the inspirational television family audiences loved was fractured behind the scenes, does that diminish what the show meant to people? Well, Karamo spent years telling guests that happiness sometimes requires leaving unhealthy relationships behind. In 2026, he appeared to take his own advice. 6. Scott Evans. His brother said it first. Scott Evans had already come out to the people closest to him. What he had not necessarily chosen was the moment when the rest of America would hear about it. Then, his famous older brother spoke. In a 2009 interview, Chris Evans referred publicly to having a gay brother. Years later, Scott looked back on the moment without portraying Chris as malicious. But the episode still raises a question LGBTQ people know well. Even when the truth is not a secret to your family, who gets to decide when it becomes public? At almost exactly the same time, Scott's daytime career was becoming unexpectedly historic. On One Life to Live, his character, police officer Oliver Fish, entered a romance with Kyle Lewis. Kish, as fans called them, became one of daytime television's most visible gay male couples. And almost immediately, the storyline encountered real-world resistance. Longtime actress Patricia Mauceri was replaced after reportedly objecting on religious grounds to scenes in which her character would respond supportively to homosexuality. Suddenly, the fictional coming-out story was generating an actual workplace controversy about faith, acceptance, and what daytime television should show. Then, in 2010, the story simply ended. ABC wrote Kyle and Fish out. GLAAD publicly criticized the decision. The network said the pairing did not have the appeal it had hoped for, and that it wanted to focus on stories receiving a more favorable audience response. There is no proof Scott was removed because he was gay. But fans immediately questioned why one of daytime's rare gay couples was disappearing just as it had become culturally significant. And there was another painful detail. Reports from the time indicate Scott learned his storyline was ending only after the news had begun circulating publicly, after his final scenes had already been filmed. He later complained that, after everything he had invested in the story, he deserved the courtesy of a call. Think about that sequence. His sexuality becomes public through someone else's words. His gay storyline triggers religious controversy. Then, the storyline disappears. And he barely gets to control that announcement either. Was ABC simply following audience data? Or did daytime television retreat the moment gay romance became too visible for part of its audience? Tell us what you think. 7. Harvey Levin, the man who exposed everyone else's secrets. Harvey Levin built one of the most powerful celebrity news machines in America by finding the things famous people desperately wanted to keep private. But for years, one of the secrets he feared most belonged to him. Long before TMZ, Levin says he grew up believing he was supposed to live a straight life. As a teenager, someone close to him seemed to suspect he was gay and began making homophobic remarks around him. The person never confronted Harvey directly. They didn't have to. The message landed anyway. Levin later said the experience scarred him for years, and what happened next sounds almost unbelievable considering the fearless television personality viewers would eventually know. When Harvey began exploring gay nightlife, he sometimes waited outside a gay bar for as long as half an hour, watching the street because he was terrified someone driving past might see him walk inside. When he met men, he sometimes gave them a false name so he could disappear without being traced back to his real life. This was not a celebrity protecting a brand. This was a man learning to treat his own identity like evidence that had to be hidden. By 2010, when Levin publicly discussed being gay at an event for LGBTQ journalists, he admitted that earlier in his career, he had feared exposure could cost him everything professionally. That creates the uncomfortable irony at the center of his story. TMZ would become famous for destroying the walls celebrities built around their private lives. Yet Levin understood better than most what it felt like to fear somebody else controlling your revelation. Does that make him hypocritical? Or did living with that fear simply teach him how valuable hidden information could become? Harvey eventually reached a point where the young man afraid to enter a gay bar became one of the most powerful openly gay figures in entertainment media. But success does not erase what created the fear. 8. Hansis. Too gay for one role, not gay enough for another. Hansis helped daytime television make history before he felt safe telling viewers his own story. As Luke Snyder on As the World Turns, Hansis became part of one of American soap television's breakthrough gay romances. Luke and Noah kissed, fell in love, and built such a passionate following that fans repeatedly campaigned for the couple to receive the same intimacy and screen time as straight couples. Even viewers who initially resisted the storyline wrote Hansis to say Luke and Noah had changed the way they viewed gay people. But while Luke was becoming increasingly visible, Van remained publicly quiet about himself. Years later, he finally explained why. Hansis said he had actually been out in his personal life since 16. The closet that frightened him was professional. Fresh out of college and working his first major job, he worried that agents and casting people would stop believing he could play straight men if they knew he was gay. He described his early representatives as very traditionally masculine Hollywood types and admitted that he was scared. Then came one of the cruelest contradictions in his career. Hansis recalled meeting a manager who told him he seemed too fey and would have to change that quality to become her client. But on another project, he says he was fired because he was not gay enough. Think about that. Too gay to be comfortably sold as straight. Not gay enough to satisfy somebody else's stereotype of a gay man. Where exactly was he supposed to stand? That is what makes Van's story deeper than a simple coming-out tale. He was not only deciding whether to reveal his sexuality, he was navigating an industry that could judge the same man in completely opposite ways, depending on what stereotype it needed that day. And yet, the ending is remarkably different from the beginning. In 2024, Hansis returned to daytime television as Dr. Lucas Jones on General Hospital. In a 2026 interview, he said he was proud to play another gay character and considered it an honor to bring marginalized people to the screen. The young actor who once feared being seen as gay had become the veteran openly embracing the responsibility. 9. Tuc Watkins, the heartthrob who wanted a family. For years, daytime viewers knew Tuc Watkins as David Vickers on One Life to Live, handsome, shameless, flirtatious, and exactly the kind of man soap operas were built to sell. But while audiences watched David chase women, Watkins was quietly imagining a very different life. In 2013, appearing on the daytime talk show Marie, he publicly shared that he was gay, and that he was already raising twin sons, Katchin and Curtis, as a single father through surrogacy. For some longtime fans, the contrast was startling. The womanizing fantasy on television was being played by a gay man whose real evenings revolved around bottles, bedtime routines, and two boys calling him dad. Watkins said that even when he was young, two things were clear. He knew he was gay, and he knew he wanted children. At a time when gay parenthood was still treated by many as controversial, those dreams did not always seem easy to combine. But Watkins refused to let someone else's definition of family decide his future. And that raises a larger question. Why can audiences easily accept an actor playing a murderer, criminal, or cheating husband, yet sometimes struggle when a gay actor plays a straight romantic lead? Did learning Watkins was gay change David Vickers? The performance was identical. Only the audience's assumptions changed. Watkins eventually found love as well, entering a relationship with actor Andrew Rannells. But perhaps his biggest victory came earlier, building the family he had always wanted. So tell us, should a soap heartthrob's sexuality matter to the fantasy at all? Or does everyone, gay or straight, simply deserve the chance to love, build a family, and be happy on their own terms. Tuc Watkins spent years playing the man viewers wanted. Then, he finally built the life he wanted. 10. Joe Zee. The door that finally opened. Joe Zee's story does not end with scandal. It ends with a question. Why did daytime television take so long to give someone like him a seat? By the time Zee joined FAB Life in 2015, he was already a respected fashion editor and television personality. Smart, funny, and perfectly suited to daytime. But his presence at that table represented something larger. Out magazine described Zee as the first openly gay Asian man to host a nationally syndicated daytime talk show. The first, after decades of American daytime television. Zee has spoken about hearing no throughout his career. Being Asian meant entering industries where few men looked like him. Being openly gay added another layer in a television culture that had historically treated LGBTQ visibility cautiously. Then, Fab Life arrived. It appeared to be the breakthrough: national syndication, famous co-hosts, and Zee finally occupying a television seat people like him had rarely been offered. One season later, the show was gone. There is no evidence Zee's sexuality or ethnicity caused its cancellation. Television shows fail constantly, but failure feels different when you are the first. When countless people like you have held a job before, one failed show is simply a failed show. When you are the first, people can unfairly treat that failure as evidence about everyone who might follow. And perhaps that is why Joe Zee belongs at the end. These 10 stories were never simply about being gay. They were about privacy, family, fear, mistakes, survival, and the right to define your own life. So, which man surprised you most? And if you ever find yourself feeling that you do not belong in the room, remember Joe Zee. Sometimes courage is not proving that you can never fail. Sometimes it is being the first person brave enough to open the door. Behind every daytime smile was a life the cameras could never fully capture. Some of these men found love, some lost it, some survived judgment, illness, betrayal, or the fear of simply being seen. Their stories remind us that privacy is not dishonesty, and happiness should never require permission. Which story surprised you most? And do TV stars owe viewers their private truth? Tell us in the comments.